Hey everyone, let's talk about the latest unit in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius Global. But before we do, small PSA. One, I finally finished my master's thesis. Whoop. Well, technically, I've written it all. It's all down on paper. I just have to proofread this. A couple of friends of mine also already proofread it, so it's all good. Well, at least some parts. They get the final thing on Saturday or so probably, and I still got a month until I actually have to hand it in 26th of August, but I'm planning, or I told my friends to proofread this within 2 weeks so I can hand it in 3 weeks from now. But what's good, or what's in it for you guys, is that I actually have my life back, meaning I can actually do videos on FFBE again with a stable schedule again, and it's all fine. So budget guides are back on the table, maybe some fun videos like the ones I did. So that's number two. That's cool, is that I can do fun videos again, like best STMRs. What I'm not gonna do is unit outlook for very obvious reasons, and yeah, just general stuff that's going to that I did previously is going to come back at some point again once I figure out which topics to tackle and all. So that's all cool. Three, I'm taking this week off. I feel really exhausted from all the last 2 months of working my full-time job, doing FFBE content, doing the thesis. I feel like, especially this week being super dead, I feel like I deserved a week off. So today's review on Rhus, tomorrow's review on Nelica are the only things that I'm going to do this week, and that's going to be it. I hope you don't mind. But I'll be back next week for whatever there may be. Okay, so let's start with Poor Man's Kaito, Rhus, one Final Fantasy story unit. He is Brave Shift, which is surprising for Alum units. Base form, he has weird frames, can be tagged, and he's a 13-hit LB chainer. In Brave Shift, he's becoming a discount Xenogears unit. Suits up into his mech, and just like the Xenogears unit, he can't wear helms or clothes, which is super annoying, and has a super limited weapon choice, basically swords only. But you can wiggle around this a little bit. The abilities, on the left hand side in the base form, I made sure to point out the ability that grants tag abilities. It's some of his natural abilities, but what's cool about this is it's also allowing his limit burst to tag attack, which is a neat gimmick. Is it ever going to be useful? Probably no. You need his base form limit burst to boost up the Brave Shifted limit burst, but oh well. And his Brave Shift specialized ability that I'm pointing out is his killer buff to all allies. 100% single race, Machina in that case, and just 100%. That feels vastly outdated. We have units from last year, Ling for example, who does a lot better than this. The only upside is it's a 10-turn Machina mitigation, but since this is a Dark Visions unit, that is never going to be helpful in any case, because you're not supposed to take damage in Dark Visions at all. Anyway, so let's check out more of his abilities. And truth be told, what you're seeing here at the top, the first two, that's basically it. There isn't really much to talk about his kit. He has weak Imperils 120 on his LB. He has 130, but yeah, he has a couple of LB modifiers, 40x on both forms, by the way. He has a 40% amplification, which isn't on screen right now, but he has it. And what I feel is, and I feel like it's really dumb that, no, it's the limit burst mod increase. So what I really dislike is that his limit burst mod increase left-hand side, it also applies to the Brave Shift, by the way. It is a 3-turn cooldown, and it's available on turn 3, meaning this easily could have been a super limit burst unit, because you can use this on turn 3 regardless. So I mean, he is a trans shift unit too, which you may or may not know by now. I don't really like trans-shift units. I didn't like Chizuru being one, and I especially don't like Rhus being one with this restriction in place. Other than that, he gains a lot of attack. He has his TMR and STMR bonuses, 500 attack. Flat passive, he gains more 500 attack from his TMR and from EX plus 3. So he actually does have a lot of attack, even though he isn't allowed to use helmets, for example. So that's not too shabby, honestly. And yeah, otherwise he has a decent variety of killers, mainly beasts, plants, aquatics, dragon, and machina. All of them are 200% in the brave shift, which is the only form that really matters. So that's not too bad, honestly. So he for the most races, he will fare rather okay-ish, honestly. And we'll see that in a bit. The limit burst. For the base form, limit burst is a 25% sword and peril, which is just supported type-esque value. Sylvie also has 25%, and she isn't a DPS. So that's kind of weak, if you're asking me. 150 Machina killer buff only to himself, which is rather unimpressive. 130 water imperil, also very unimpressive. We have Kaito with 140, by the way. 200x modifier, water physical. And at the very end, he increases LB modifiers by 50x for infinite turns, cannot be dispelled, which is cool. I find it rather dumb, to be honest, that the modifier increase is after the damage and not before it. That could have been cool, but so be it. And then there's the Brave Shifted Limit Burst. It's 2 one-hitters, so double finishing move. One is specified versus Machina 70x, and one is untyped race, so 200x. Both are water physical though, meaning if you add all of this up, it's 450x when it's typed against Machinas, which isn't too bad, honestly. But when it's not against Machina, it's a whole lot less. What's it? It's 100, that's 300 plus 80. It's 380, 381. If I didn't miscalculate, you can add Sylvie on top for another 20x in that case, for the non-mitigation one. So that's okay, I guess. Alright, so the Brave Shift LB isn't bad. It's actually pretty good even against Machinas. Now let's take a look at the TMR, STMR, and Vision card. TMR is a two-handed sword with the standard two-handed sword variants from 1.25 to 1.75. It's only 180 attack and it's a water element weapon. So please keep that in mind. Whenever you equip this, you have water locked to you. You cannot escape it anymore. So you probably shouldn't use this. But the upside is you gain 100% Beast Killer, unconditional, and normal attacks will hit twice. Now this isn't really important to most units, but it's there. Rhus only gains a 500 static attack and another 100% physical and magical Machina killer. Not too shabby, honestly, for a TMR. I made a mistake in my verdict. It was supposed to say low attack TMR. But yeah, I hope you get the gist. The Super Thrust Master is a heavy armor piece with one very crucial restriction. It's FFBE units only. Please keep that in mind. So your, say for example, your Dragoon Kane cannot wear this. You don't want to wear this on Dragoon Kane anyway, but he couldn't use this because he's not an FFBE unit. But for those who can wear it, it's a 150 attack chest piece, which is pretty high. It's 30 attack higher than our Clash equipment pieces, so JP is starting to catch up to those, even if you use them with the static attack. That 30 attack base difference is pretty huge, honestly. Adds 45 defense too, and a 100% LB fill rate. So in terms of what it does, it's actually kind of but the stats actually make up for it, honestly. So due to the fact that you can only use one Clash Close, because there's only one copy of it, having this STMR once or twice, maybe not the worst option, honestly. Also, Rhus himself gains another 500 static attack, probably to offset his lacking helmet slot in the brace shift. And then there's the vision card, which is so bad. While it has a 140 attack, that's really good. The rest of it is straight up garbage. It's 50 LB fill rate and another 100 LB fill rate at level 10, so 200 LB fill rate. Who's ever going to use this, really? It's so bad, and high attack power, base attack, it just doesn't really make up for it. That what you're losing. I mean, we have Wilk's card that's infinitely better at the same attack value. We have Esther's card with 5 base attack less, but so much more on it. Knights of Grandchild card, the Die card. There's so many better cards. Literally every card is better than this. Don't use it. Never. If I were able to delete this card from the game or from my stash, I would delete it. I will never use this card. It's so bad. And yeah, verdict on the vision card, we just started. The STMR, I find it rather decent. That's all there is to say, really. It's just lacking that static attack for everybody, like the Clash Gloves. It's lacking killers or LB damage. Those are the things we're actually looking for in a chest piece STMR these days. So let's check out the damage calculation. As always, pause this part if you want to read it through. Let's check out the build. And here's the kicker. If you checked out my DPS spreadsheet, I already pointed out in top right that I'm going to remove the calculations for race types. For one very specific reason. A, I'm lazy and I hate doing double builds for this. Nailica is going to be a super corner case, because Nailica, whom we'll be reviewing tomorrow, has a double amount of LB modifier versus ideal race and just half of it versus non-races. And that's just dumb, because these units, they are so hyper specialized. In 99% of all cases, these units are absolutely garbage. And if I put them at the very top spot, because that's where Nailica is going to end up being, that pretty much is kind of misleading, because she's only in that super hyper specialized case at the very top, but for everything else she's just bad to mediocre. And that's the reason why I will be removing all of the units on my spreadsheet that have that, or actually I will just remove the calculations where it says, for example, Wilk with dragon killers or dragon type boss. That's going to disappear, because I feel like that's just bad. And it doesn't really reflect the reality, because rarely will you face a Machina boss, rarely will you face a dragon boss. It's just, yeah, that's not the reality. The reality is you will face off types in the near future, insects, beasts, fairies, blah, but never will it be, or very rarely will it be Machina. Matter of fact, the next Dark Vision boss is probably Machina typed, but these types, they're far too rare. And you will have to keep it in mind just that these benefits exist, but they just are too rare to actually make them worth being a spot on the damage spreadsheet. So these are the two builds. Main difference is the Esper in that case. So rather high attack though. 12,000, not too shabby. It's higher than it's higher than the Chizuru that I have on here. Let's check it out then. Actually, is it higher than Chizuru? No, it's not. I lied. But it's higher than Works, LB damage. And that's what I meant. Like, as you can see, Rhus versus a Machina type, he was built for Machina Demon, which meant he has 450% average killer with 150% buff. And that puts him above Esther. Is that going to reflect reality? Probably not. On a boss, on the next potential boss in Dark Visions, Esther sims higher than Rhus. That's a fact. And I really dislike this kind where it states versus Machina, and thus giving units a certain advantage on the sheet. Same applies to Wilk. Like, Wilk is stronger than Sylvie versus Chizuru versus dragons, obviously, but he's a little bit weaker than Chizuru when he's just not gaining that advantage. And tomorrow in my review on Neolica, you're going to see a very huge spike in damage, deep damage done, but only versus her 2 types. The other calc is going to be a lot lower. But yeah, as of now, for this review, Rhus is at 85.11% of UX damage versus ideal type. And 69, nice, 0.45% of Chizuru's damage when he's not matching ideal types. And that's the reality you will face most of the time. And with that in mind, it's no surprise that I rated Rhus a 3 out of 10. So let's check it out. So the actually only good things about him are the damage, which is still pretty good. 401x LB damage isn't too bad, especially with the 12k attack in mind. And the STMR is still pretty decent for FFBE units. On the other hand, though, he has a very low sword imperil as well as water imperil. Keep in mind, baseline for sword is 30%, baseline for water is 135%, and that's why he gains a -1. The super division card is super trashy, and like I mentioned, I dislike trans shifts, but that does not warrant a -1. What does, though, is having a turn 3 amp cooldown that makes him super annoying to use. It just prolongs the fight for no real reason other than just because. And I hate this. And that's why I went with the -1 in that case. He also has absolutely 0 party support. And that's just no bueno in a global unit meta that is defined by super role compressing units that do so much more than just damage. And units such as Rhus, Neolica, and many others, they just don't have a real place anymore in this meta. And what I also dislike to some degree is that you have to waste an equipment slot, in this case equip heavy armor, such that he can actually wear his own STMR. And it's getting even worse with Neolica tomorrow, but that's a topic for another day. So all in all, Rhus may seem like a good investment on the sheet. As you've seen, he sims higher than Esther, apparently. But that's just versus Machinas and in a very specialized and closed environment, which will never happen, or potentially never happen, in such a very super specialized environment. Even the next Dark Vision fight, Esther is going to sim higher, because she has the matching types of this boss. Which then means, why bring Rhus over Esther, for example? So super hyper specialized. While he can be imbued, he has that flexible second part of the LB, but that's just too low. It doesn't really make up for his lack of party support, so yeah. I feel like he's a safe skip unless you are really chasing for top 50 Dark Visions. And if you're not chasing top 50 Dark Visions, skipping him is absolutely fine, trust me on this. And with that, we're closing today's review. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for the Neolica review. And until then, have a wonderful rest of the Friday evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're from. Bye bye.